Hey everybody, my name is Deja and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about all the books that I read in the month of July. July was a very crazy month because I was hosting my own readathon, the Tarot Readathon, and I also participated in Summerween and July Noir, which July Noir I technically failed because you needed to read like 5 to 6 books. I think per location I read 4 for my location. So I did kind of fail that, and normally I crochet while I talk to y'all about my wrap up, but I'm not going to be doing that today because it always takes me so long to film when I'm crocheting because there's so many moments that I have to cut out where I concentrate and lock in on crocheting and then I'm like, wait, I'm supposed to be talking. So we're not going to be doing that today because there is 20 books and I'll be sitting here for forever and I don't have that kind of time. So I'm just going to be talking about each book today like normal, and we're going to be trying to make these reviews a little bit snappy because there are so many books, but I always write like in-depth reviews now on my Goodreads. I usually just like write like a word or a sentence or whatever, and sometimes I still do that like depending on the book. But for the most part, each book that I've been reading for the past month or two has gotten an in-depth review, except like there are some books that like I'm like, okay, like this doesn't need all of that, but a lot of books I do give like multiple paragraphs of reviews. I always start off with my statistics. So in the month of July, as I said, I read 20 books. 9 of those were by BIPOC authors. 2 of those had queer rep. I didn't have any rereads or DNFs. I read 5,674 pages. So this is the most amount of books and pages I've read so far this year, and I think that's thanks to the Tarot Readathon, of course. I read 1 classic, 1 fantasy, 9 horror books, 2 mystery, 4 romance, and 3 thrillers. So pretty typical spread for my genres. And then for format, I read 6 audiobooks, 3 ebooks, 2 physical books, and 9 hybrid. I feel like in the past 2 months especially, my format has kind of diversified. I think because I have more time to like physically read and read on my Kindle or Kobo now. I actually have a Kobo. I keep saying Kindle because I'm so used to saying that, but an e-reader. And then for audience, I had 15 adult books, 2 middle grade, 1 new adult, and 2 YA. So this month, I had a wide spread of audience compared to most months. And then for ratings, I had a 3 2-stars, which is a lot. This is the most 2 stars I've had all year. So I had 3 2 stars, 3 3 stars, 4 3.5, 5 4 stars, 3 4.5, and 2 5 stars. And then for type, 14 of them were novels, 4 were novellas, and 2 were graphic novels / manga. And then for author status, 3 were debut, 5 were new to me, and 12 were repeat authors. I'm so excited to talk about these books, but first we have to talk about the books I'm not as excited to talk about, and that is my 2 stars. I'm also going to tell y'all what readathons I read each book for and what prompt they count for. So first I have PTSD Radio Volume 1, and this was for the Tarot Readathon and Summerween. So for the Tarot Readathon, I read this for King of Pentacles, which is read a book that has an unreliable narrator or villain POV, and for Summerween, this was for read a book in the dark or at night, and also for read a manga. I think the prompt is like read a spooky audiobook, manga, or graphic novel, and so I ended up going with a manga for this. I honestly don't know what to say about this. It's going to be a quick review. Even on my Goodreads, this one only has like a paragraph of review because I don't really know what to say about it. Let me just read the back so you guys can see like what the plot is, but this book kind of has no plot, so it's like there's nothing to describe, but it says, an unseen hand tugs at your braid. You find an old sealed box with a tangled mess of dark hair inside. In the hallway outside your room, a river of curls is slinking away, an ominous lump at its heart. It won't be long until you feel Oguchi Shama's fingers slithering across your scalp. Before it's too late, tune into PTSD Radio. Sorry if I butchered that, but basically this is a bunch of like short stories, and we're following a variety of different people in here, and sometimes we get multiple stories from one person, sometimes we only see them once, and each story is only probably like 3 to 5 or 6 pages, so they're not long at all. So this does have to do with like I think a being that relates to hair. Like I'm pretty sure you probably get more lore and background on what this series is actually supposed to be if you continue on, but I definitely won't be continuing on because I feel like in this the author literally just had like cool ideas for art like this, and like just tried to tie a whole bunch of stories together or a whole bunch of art pieces he already had together to make this story. Like it didn't feel cohesive. It didn't feel like it actually had a point. Like I feel like he tried to connect them together, but it didn't really flow. Like some of these things didn't connect back. Like we just saw random things. Like for example, there was this guy who was like in bed at night and he saw his girlfriend looking over him creepily, and he was just like, what the hell? And then we literally never returned to them again. It has nothing to even do with hair. I just am like, there was no point to that. You know, like there was literally no point, and I feel like this was pointless. I wanted to DNF it, and I've never, ever wanted to DNF a manga or anything. I literally said in my review, like, this is the first manga that I've ever read that I didn't enjoy, and so I'm just, yeah, I just didn't like it. I wouldn't recommend it because I don't think it's creepy that much, and also I feel like it's pointless and doesn't really flow cohesively. My next 2-star is really, really unfortunate, probably my biggest disappointment of the whole month, because I have another really popular book as a 2-star, but this was the one that I thought I was gonna love, and that is I Feed Her to the Beast and the Beast is Me by Jemison Shea. This one I read for Ace of Wands for the Tarot Readathon, which is read a book by a new to you author or in a genre you haven't explored, so I never read this author before, and I also read it for July Noir for Book with Body Parts. And so this book, I really didn't enjoy it. It is a YA horror book, and basically we're following this black girl who is in Parisian ballet. So she's like in this very like white kind of rich space, and she comes from more an impoverished background, and she's like sponsored to go to like this school or academy for like dancing, for being a ballerina, and she's like competing with other people obviously for different spots in different, I don't know what they're called, they're not like plays, but like, you know, different like ballet shows. And one day one of the other ballerinas who's really, really well liked takes her down into the catacombs of Paris, and there is kind of like this pulsating river of blood, and basically if you offer yourself up to this river of blood you can get something that you want. So she does that so she can basically get like power and prestige and basically be successful and like become one of the best ballerinas in this academy, or just like ever. That's like what she wants, and I thought I was gonna love this because so many of my friends like this one, but I really didn't. And for so long I was convincing myself, oh, I'm liking this, like I really like this, when I really didn't. It took me a whole week to read this book, and in the time that I read this one book I read 3 other books. I just never wanted to pick it up. I never ever was interested or liked it. One of the things that really dragged this book down for me was the pacing. It felt so long, and it was actually a long book. That for being a YA book, it's pretty long, and it just felt like the same things kept happening over and over and over and over again, and we kept not progressing anywhere until the very, very end. I feel like this book had so much potential because it talks so much about like whiteness and privilege and wealth and thinness, and I really wanted it to go there, but it didn't. And I've read YA books that really did go there with their commentary, so I feel like that's not an excuse. I feel like a lot of people say like, oh, it's a YA book, so it's not going to have as good of commentary, and I just don't believe in that at all. I feel like it brought these things up and talked about them very surface level, but didn't really like dive into them. And I feel like for having such a long book, like we had the time and page count to explore these themes in depth, and we didn't. I was never really attached to the main character. I liked her. She's also bisexual and I'm bisexual, so I liked seeing her, and this did have some eerie, gory moments, and I liked this kind of like god, monster, demon, river thing. I liked that. I wish we had more of that element, and this is a duology, but I again do not plan on continuing on because this truly was like a chore for me to read, and I should have DNF'd it, but I'm just not a DNF'er, and I was convincing myself that I liked it. I was literally gaslighting myself, telling myself I liked it, and I didn't. And my last 2-star is With a Vengeance by Riley Sager, which I read for the Tarot Readathon as well. This was for the 5 of Pentacles, and the 5 of Pentacles is read a book you don't think will be a 5-star, but you still want to read anyways. And I also read this for my book club because this was my Patreon book club pick for the month, the final chapter. It's always linked down below if you want to join. And I've read every single Riley Sager to date, so of course I knew like this was a no-brainer. I was gonna read it. I didn't think it was gonna be a 5-star, as you guys saw, because of the prompt I chose it for, because this is like an Agatha Christie style locked room mystery, and those are not generally my favorite, and this is Riley Sager's first like fully historical book. A lot of his books do have like time jumps where it'll jump back into the past, but this one's completely historical. This one takes place in the 1950s, and we're following our main character, and basically her whole family, she had like obviously her parents and her brother, they were all killed or killed themselves because of what happened to their other family members, and she feels like there are 6 people that were the major downfalls to her family, and so she invites them all onto this train. This is 12 years after everything happened, so she invites them onto this train, and for these 12 years she's been meticulously planning everything, and she basically wants to get them on this train. She planned it where it's not going to stop, there's no way to stop it, there's no other passengers, there's nothing, and so they are going from I think Philadelphia to Chicago. It's an overnight train, it's like 14 hours, and her plan is to basically like confront these people and get them to admit to what they did, and then at the end the FBI is going to be waiting to like take them off to jail, prison, whatever. That's how she wants to seek her vengeance. But then someone ends up dead on this train, and so she never planned to like kill these people. She knows that she didn't do it, so they're trying to figure out who is the killer on this train. I feel like this one was just so boring. Like at no point was I ever interested in this story, and I feel like that's been happening to me with a lot of thrillers, not just this one. But this one was really, really prominent for me because it was so much slower, I feel, and like that locked room mystery. I feel like a locked room kind of Agatha Christie style mystery is very, very difficult to do, and that's why Agatha Christie is seen as the queen of mysteries, because she does it well. And this one, I don't feel like it was done well. And the main thing that really, really bothered me was that I feel like this was supposed to be a historical book, right? Besides them not having phones and like stuff like that, nothing about this felt historical. Like at no moment was I ever like, oh, I'm in the 1950s. And again, the 1950s weren't that long ago, so I understand. But I feel like if you are going to do like a historical set novel, like I want you to really lean into that. And even so, like on this train, I want it to be thematic. Like I want to feel like I'm really immersed in the setting, and I never ever felt that. It felt like a typical Riley Sager writing style just for this setting. I never liked the characters. Some of the twists were like surprising, they were shocking, but I didn't have any interest in what was going on, so it just didn't really matter to me. I will give him props. That's the only reason this book didn't get 1 star for me, is because one, it was very, very readable. Like Riley Sager's writing is always readable. Like I always get through them very quickly, and the twists were surprising. I thought there were a couple good twists, but nothing about this interests me. Again, if this was not for my book club, I might have honestly DNF'd it. I thought about it, and I've read all of Riley Sager's books, so I was like, I'm always going to read all of Riley Sager's books, but I almost DNF'd this one if it wasn't for my book club. That just goes to show how much I did not enjoy this. So that's it for my 2 stars. Now we're moving on to my 3 stars. First up is Welcome to Camp Nightmare by R.L. Stine. This is a Goosebumps book. I read it for 6 of Cups for the Tarot Readathon, which is read a book that brings you back to a nostalgic time in your life. Obviously, it's Goosebumps, so that fulfills that prompt. And then I also read it for Summerween, which is read a book with a sky on the cover. And this one I just gave 3 stars. It was a good little middle grade. It was super short. I definitely read better middle grade than this. I've read better Goosebumps books than this, but I liked it. It was a fun time. Basically, we're just following this boy, Billy, as he goes to summer camp, and then weird things start to happen. The counselors are kind of creepy, and some of the other campers start to disappear. It was just a fine read. I didn't think it was like super creepy. I mean, it's a middle grade, but I've definitely been creeped out by some middle grade before. And also, I did like the end of this. The end of it kind of took it in a different direction than I anticipated, but I kind of wish it was a little bit longer. I don't know if this is shorter or average for a typical Goosebumps book. I don't really remember. It says it's 160 pages. It didn't feel that long. It felt shorter. It literally felt like 90 to 100 pages, so I wish we just got a little bit more, and especially a little bit more of that creep factor, but it was still a good read and it fulfilled what it needed to for Summerween. And I think I read a Goosebumps book for Summerween a year or 2 ago, so I might make that a trend where I read one every single Summerween. My next 3 star is another kind of disappointing one, and that is Only When It's Us by Chloe Leese. Again, I read this for the Tarot Readathon. I read it for The Lovers, which is read a book that has a romance in it, and this one was also for my Patreon. Again, we're doing a read along. I normally try to do like a couple read-alongs a year of different series, and they tend to be like series out of our typical genres that we read. Like for our book club, we really read mostly like thrillers and horror books, sometimes a mystery. So normally for our series, we'll do like a fantasy series or dystopian or romance. So I had people vote on romance series because I don't think we've actually done a romance series, and this is the one that won. And I was really excited for this because Chloe Leese writes very diverse romances where a lot of her characters have some sort of disability in them, and our male main character in this is deaf, so he's dealing with that. And I was really looking forward to that because I was super involved in the deaf community in high school. I took sign language and I loved the deaf community so much, and I still do. I want to be more active in like re-pick up sign language, so I was really excited to see that in here. And it's a college romance. I just graduated from college, so I'm like kind of missing it a little bit, so I was really excited for this one, but it fell flat for me, unfortunately. This one follows Willa and Ryder. So Willa is a like women's soccer player, and she always comes late to class and stuff because of her like soccer obligations, and the professor is not super accommodating of her, like won't give her notes or anything like that. And she sits next to this guy, Ryder, and I think she's like asking him for his notes or something, and he does not like pay attention to her and ignores her, but actually he's deaf, so he could not hear her. And so she begins to hate him because she's like, why did you ignore me like that? And also the teacher gives him the lecture notes, so she's like, why is he getting special treatment? Again, it's because he's deaf, but she doesn't know this. She's also dealing with the fact that her mom is currently fighting cancer as well, and so there's a lot going on in both their lives, and they're actually forced together to work on this final project for the class that they're in. And that's kind of like when she realizes that he is not an asshole, he's just deaf. What I did really like about this book was kind of the more emotional elements. I wouldn't say it's the most emotional romance I ever read, but seeing Ryder kind of struggle with his deafness and how it's affected him. And he used to be really involved in soccer too, but kind of stopped because of that. And I really liked Ryder, honestly. He was such a sweetheart. I really liked him. And also like Willa dealing with her mom in this does have grief in it. It has loss of a parent. I will say that. I don't want to spoil it, but I do want to give triggers, so I will say that's in this book. And seeing that and how they process that separately and together was really interesting, and those were the elements that I liked. But besides that, I didn't really like much. Like, I really liked Ryder, and I liked his family dynamics because this is the first series in the Bergman Brothers series, so each book in the series follows a different brother. I'm kind of excited, a little bit nervous to read the other books in the series because I think I could really love some of those. Just again, kind of nervous because I didn't love this one. But where this really bothered me was Willa. Like, I feel like Willa was like a straight asshole. Nothing about her I liked. Like, she very much irritated me. I know in this book she's dealing with grief, and like, I have empathy for that completely, but as a character, she low-key was like a dick, and I really could not stand her at all. And I don't think there was any chemistry between these two characters either. Like, I really liked Ryder, but they didn't really have much chemistry. I didn't really fall for their romance at any point. Like, I just felt like they had kind of this lustful relationship, and that's where it kind of ends. And this was just fine. Like, there were things about it I liked, there were things about it that I didn't like. But what I've noticed lately is that there's a lot of romances where I don't feel connected to the romance, and that's the whole point of a romance book. Like, I'll like a lot of the other elements, but not the romance. And then I realized, like, I can't really give that a high rating because that's the whole point of the book, to be a romance. My next 3-star I actually did like, but I couldn't rate it that highly because of a specific reason, which I'll talk about, and that is Guillotine by Delilah S. Dawson, which of course, again, I read for the Tarot Readathon for The Hermit. And that is to read a book you think you can read in just a few sittings, which of course I did. It's super short. I read it in one sitting. And this one, I really liked the idea of it. We're basically following this woman, Des, and she is an aspiring fashion designer, and she is dating this man who has like connections to some really high up fashion designers. His family's super rich and opulent, and she gets invited to like I think it's a private island where they're like just having like this family thing or whatever, and she ends up going there and finding out that there is a lot of really horrible stuff happening in this family with the way that they treat their staff in particular, and the staff starts to get retribution on this family because they've harmed them. And then it goes kind of crazy. It's kind of gory. I really liked this one. I liked the commentary. I liked the gore. And the reason I gave it 3 stars is because I feel like this is almost exactly identical to the graphic novel I read earlier this year, Eat the Rich by Sarah Gailey. Now, mind you, this is a novella and that's a graphic novel, but besides that, these are almost identical. There are like a couple little things that of course are different. And I'm not saying like one author copied it the other. Like, I really think that they both kind of just had this idea and went with it. But because I read that one already earlier this year, like, I felt like I was like reading the same story over again, and it felt very repetitive. Sorry if the angle changed a little bit. It said that I ran out of memory space, even though it said I had like an hour. I don't know what happened, but I deleted some stuff. Anyways, this book just felt repetitive to things that I literally read before, like almost identical, and that's why I couldn't give it that high of a rating. But I still would recommend this, and I'm definitely keeping it on my shelves. My next 3-star is Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder, which I also, again, read for the Tarot Readathon. I read all these for the Tarot Readathon, which was for The Emperor, which is read a book with a 1-word title, and I also read this during Summerween for Summerween. I completed all the prompts by the time I read this book, but I still read it for that. And this one I thought was going to be super unhinged. We're basically just following this woman who is a couple years postpartum, I believe, with her first child, like a year or two, and she begins to think that she's turning into a dog. And this basically is like a whole metaphor of like the transformation, kind of reflecting the feeling of losing yourself, especially for new mothers, and kind of them leaning into like this instinctual, almost animal kind of way. And it's especially prominent because of like taking on the weight of caretaking and domesticity. This one I feel like was just kind of like a literary horror book. I would honestly put it in that category. I don't know if other people would, but there was really not much gore in this. There is a lot of animal cruelty because she's turning into a dog, so if you don't like that, if that's triggering for you, I would be cautious of this book. But I feel like this book was just so slow, and like I understand the metaphor and everything like that, but we had like this whole thing of her turning into the dog and like leading up to that, and like the end fell so flat too. Like, if the end was really good, I probably would have given this 4 stars because I liked the metaphor, but it, again, like the ending was just like not it fell super flat, so it just was a 3-star for me. There was nothing really bad about this book. It was just slow, and I didn't really enjoy the ending. Like, it was fine. Next up, I have Wild Love by Elsie Silver, and this is a 3.5 for me. Again, for the Tarot Readathon, I read this for The Devil, which is read a book that, you know, has mixed reviews. I was gonna read another book for this, but I saw a lot of people saying this had mixed reviews, and it was on my 25 books to read in 2025, so I wanted to get it off there. And this was a good, solid, enjoyable romance. Like, I really did enjoy this, but it was nothing groundbreaking or crazy. I feel like every time I read a romance now, I'm like, is it Kennedy Ryan level though? And if it's not, it's getting a 4-star or lower for me. Like, I don't know, like Kennedy Ryan has just set the standard so high, the bar is so high, that most romances I'm like, that was good, but it's not Kennedy Ryan, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a good, solid, enjoyable read. I would recommend it. It's a fun romance. This one follows Ford, and he is like deemed the world's hottest billionaire, but he just wants to open his little recording studio in his small town of Rose Hill where he grew up. But then this girl comes up to him one day who's like 12 years old, and she's like, hey, you're actually my dad because you donated sperm way long ago, and I'm the production of that because my parents used your sperm to make a child. My dad passed away, and now my mom is like grieving and mentally not doing well, and she needs to go to a facility. But if she goes to a facility, I'm gonna be put into like foster care, and that's not good. So like, basically, can you raise me until my mom gets better? And he is low-key like, what the hell, but okay, which is unrealistic to me. Like, that's one of the things that I was like, okay, like, I guess it shows Ford is super kind, but I don't think the majority of people, especially someone who's this rich, would do that. And then Rosie is our female main character, and she is actually Ford's best friend's little sister, and she comes back into town around the same time that this girl comes in because she lost her job, and she's struggling because basically she was sexually assaulted at her job. They fired her before she could report it because the guy knew that she was going to report it who did that to her, and he was higher up. And she told her boyfriend, and her boyfriend was just like, maybe you should just like keep it to yourself, and had no empathy for her. So she's like just lost her job, and her boyfriend doesn't feel like a safe space for her anymore, so she goes home to Rose Hill, and Ford ends up giving her a job. And I really love single parent romances, and seeing him kind of connect with his daughter who he never thought that he would have because he just donated sperm was really interesting. And I really did like the childhood friends to lovers kind of dynamic. I thought that was really interesting, but I feel like Ford for years had like this pining after Rosie, and I just don't feel like it was realistic. And again, like, I don't think it was realistic that he basically accepted this girl who he donated sperm and she was made from that. Also, her being 12 years old, I think she was super unrealistic. She acted more like a 16-year-old, which I guess there are 12-year-olds who may act like that, but she just felt very, very unrealistic for a 12-year-old to me. And Rosie, while I had so much empathy for what she went through, and I honestly wish we talked a lot more about like workplace harassment and assault, I really wish we did. And that was a big element of why this also got a 3.5 from me. She was just kind of fine. Nothing really stood out about her. She was a little bit annoying in some aspects. She didn't really bother me, but nothing again stood out about her. And I did believe Ford and Rosie's chemistry. I did believe in the romance, but it was just like a fine read. Like, I liked it, and I'm definitely planning on continuing on in this series, but it's like nothing to write home about. My next 3.5 star was The Yellow Wallpaper, which I read for 4 of Cups, which is read a book you didn't think you'd ever read. This is like a classic horror book. I've kind of heard about it. It's super short. I was trying to get more points for my team significator, so I was just like reading a whole bunch of short things. And this one is like literally, it's like 30 pages. The audiobook is 40 minutes, and we're basically just dealing with this woman, and you can tell like it's a metaphor for like postpartum depression. She's dealing with having a new baby, and in this house that she's in, she starts like seeing things in the wallpaper. It's yellow, of course. And I really liked the metaphor that this was, but classic horror doesn't always work for me. There are some that I really liked, like Frankenstein, and there are some that I really hated, like The Haunting of Hill House. And this one kind of just fell in the middle. I think I appreciated it for what it was, but I do wish that it was longer. I think we could have explored a lot of the themes a lot more, but for what it was good. It was decent. Another 3.5 star that I had was another manga, and that is Cthulhu Cat, I think that's how you pronounce it, which I read for the star, which is read a graphic novel or manga. Again, I was trying to read some short things to get more significator points for my team, and it was pretty short, and I owned it physically. This one says that it's horror, but I really wouldn't say that. Basically, we're just following a Japanese high school student that comes across this supernatural cat in a box and takes it home one day, and then things start to go kind of weird from there. It's like more like episodic, like it's supposed to be like little episodes of like this Japanese kid with this cat, and it was just like a fun little read. Like, I really like cats. I've been into cats a lot in the past like year or two, so I liked seeing the cats. I kind of like the supernatural elements, but it wasn't anything that crazy or special. It was just like a fun little cute manga to read. Now moving on to my 4 stars. The first one that I have is First Time Caller by BK Borson, which was for the 7 of Cups, which was a blindfold pick. So I put out, I think, a couple romances in my July TBR, and my dog ended up choosing, because you can put, like, for the prompt, it literally says like you could choose it yourself blindfolded, or have a dog partner, whoever pick it. And this one was hard for me to rate because I really liked a lot of the elements in this book. I really liked like the radio show kind of setup, because I think another book did this, which is called The X Talk, and I did not like that book, and so I was looking for another book that kind of had that radio show or like podcast kind of element. And I like that it was a radio show over a podcast. I think that's kind of unique, because podcasts, everybody has a podcast now, but like a radio show, so like old, traditional, kind of classic, and I liked that a lot. And I kind of liked that it leaned into like the dating advice and kind of romance show. We're following two characters, and I believe they're in their 30s, and so our female main character, she has a daughter, and she has not really dated since her daughter was born. And her daughter one day calls into this radio show and is basically like, hey, my mom is single, help her, because it's like a dating advice show. And our male main character, he actually doesn't really like believe in romance that much anymore, but he tries to like help the daughter. The mom comes in and is like, who are you on the phone with? She ends up talking to him, and they kind of like bond, and then somehow our female main character is convinced to come on this like show with him, and it kind of starts to blow up because now they're having like this dynamic, and it's like a romance advice radio show. I actually liked our main character in this one. She's actually a mechanic, which I thought was really interesting for her being like a woman. Like, that's just a very like traditionally masculine job, and I'm not saying women can't do that. I thought it was so cool that we saw a woman doing that, and I felt like she was so strong, especially for her daughter, and I loved her relationship and dynamic with her daughter. And the characters felt very mature and grown up, which I liked, because some of the times when I read romances with older characters, or characters that are middle age, I should say, when I mean older, I just mean like older than traditional romance age, which is like 20s. And so when I read those romances, sometimes I don't always feel that grown up, and so I like that they actually felt like that in this story. Again, the romance in this one didn't really work for me. Like, I loved everything about this book, like I really, really did, but I did not feel convinced by the romance. I didn't think that they had any chemistry, like literally zero, zilch, nada. I really, really liked so much about it, but that romance element, it just, if it's not gonna work, it's not gonna work, you know? My next 4-star is Partners in Line by Bree Baker. This is, I think, the 6th book. Let me check. Yeah, the 6th book in the Seaside Cafe mystery series. There's 7 books, so I'm almost done. And this one I read for strength, which is read a book that features an animal, and you can see there's an animal. There's a couple of different animals in this story, and they are independent like mysteries, but I don't like to like say too much. Basically, we just follow this woman, Everly Swan, and she goes back to her small town of Charm to basically open this iced tea shop, and in each different book there's obviously a murder that happens, and she's trying to investigate and figure it out. It's a 4-star. I really like Bree Baker's writing. I really love her cozy mysteries, but it takes a lot for a cozy mystery to get a 5-star for me. Like, they're always fun, they're always enjoyable, but it really needs to have an element that stands out for me to love it. And I think I am getting a little bit tired of this series, which is why it's a 4-star for me. But I really do like her writing and her characters and their relationships. I'm really, really attached to them in the series, so that's kind of like what raises it to a 4-star, but it is getting a little bit repetitive at this point. So I liked it a lot. I did not guess the killer, but I never guessed the killer, and overall it was a good, fun, quick read. My next 4-star was We All Rot Eventually by Mia Ballard, which I read for Ace of Cups, which is read a book that will fill your cup with joy. And again, this was a 4-star for me. I really liked this little novella a lot. It takes place in 2005, and we're following Alexa Valentine, and she just moved to Los Angeles in the past couple years, and she is an aspiring actress, and her ambition basically begins to grow insatiable, and she starts doing some unhinged shit. Okay, it's an unhinged woman book. It's super short. It's literally like less than 100 pages, but this was like really fun. I really liked like the 2000s vibes. I liked the Los Angeles vibes. I feel like it's very heavy like Maxine vibes, the movie, except make it 2005. And this one kind of went off the rails at the end in a way that I didn't expect, but I really, really, really liked. And it was just like a fun, quick little novella. It's not my favorite from Mia Ballard. It's actually my least favorite, but I feel like she thrives more with like a little bit more of a page length, like a 200-page book. I feel like this one could have been really fleshed out and really good, but for it being so short, I really, really liked it, and I definitely recommend it. My next 4-star was Blood in the Water by Tiffany D. Jackson. Again, Tiffany D. Jackson's an author that I've read every single thing that she's written, and this was her middle grade debut. I read it for the Tarot Readathon, of course. I read it for Knight of Cups, which is read a book with a character going through emotional turmoil, and I also read it for July Noir for the free space for my location, and I really enjoyed this one a lot. I feel like Tiffany D. Jackson, even though she technically writes middle grade, I feel like her books are great for everybody of all ages. This one follows Kaylani, and her dad's actually in prison, and she does not believe that he committed the crimes that he was convicted of. So that's kind of like where the emotional turmoil element comes in, and her father and her mother decide that they're going to send her off with a rich black family that they know to basically spend the summer in Martha's Vineyard. And there is a murder that happens up there that is supposedly a shark attack, but then with more investigation, it's discovered that it is a murder, and Kaylani's obviously trying to like figure out who murdered them. I really like the setting of this one with it being in Martha's Vineyard, and there is actually a very large historical presence with having more affluent, I can't say that word, affluent, whatever, you know what I'm saying, those types of like families, like rich, wealthy families, but black ones going to Martha's Vineyard. So I really like kind of exploring that more historical context and that setting. I think that the story had so much depth for it being a middle grade and it being so fast. I really liked Kaylani's story and her struggling with her father and just like what's going on in her life. I thought it was really realistic, and I did like the murder mystery element here too. This one is marketed as having like Jaws vibes, and I wouldn't say that. I wanted more Jaws vibes based off them saying that in the marketing, because it's like, okay, someone supposedly gets killed by a shark and then they figure out that it's not the shark. You know, like there's no real like shark presence. It's just like, oh, sharks are showing up. Someone got bit by a shark. Oh my god. Like that's kind of it. So I wish we had a little bit more of that just because of the marketing. Like if it didn't talk about that in the marketing, I would have been like, okay, cool, whatever. But because of that, I was like, dang, like I wish we had more. There were a couple things that I thought were a little bit unrealistic about the story, but overall, it was really, really fun, and I really liked the kind of emotional depth that Tiffany Jackson wove into the story. I mean, she does in every single story, and so it's no surprise that she was able to do that in this one. My last 4-star is 8 by Rosie Adams, which of course, again, read for the Tarot Readathon. This was for 4 of Wands, which I dropped the card, so that's why I'm not holding it up. But it's read a book that features a celebratory event such as a wedding, party, or festival. So where the kind of celebration comes in this one is our main character. She basically started this like hair care or beauty care company, and she ends up selling it for millions of dollars. And so she wants to have this celebratory dinner with her best friend. So she basically gets like this really high profile chef to come from this restaurant that she loves to go to that's like super expensive, you know, whatever, and luxurious, to come to her house and like cook this dinner for her and her friend. But her friend has to bail at the last moment, so she still has the dinner with this man, and when he gets there they have some sexual tension and he makes the food for her, don't get me wrong, but maybe that's not the only thing getting ate. You know what I'm saying? That's where the title comes in. And this was just like fun. Like I love Rosie Adams' writing, like I really, really do. But it's just like a smutty novella. It's nothing crazy. I did really like it. I liked like the food talk in this one. And there's also a dog, which I really like the dog too. But it was just like a fun, quick, smutty read if that's what you're looking for. I did like a decent amount of the books that I read this month, but I feel like a lot I also didn't like. And the ones that I liked them. But they weren't like, oh my god, like I really liked this, you know? But now we're finally getting into those books. Okay, we're getting into the 4.5s. First up for the 4.5s is A Knight's Edge by Liz Kieran. This one was for Ace of Swords, which is read a debut. And also I read it for Summerween for read a thriller or horror book because it is horror. And also read a book that's been on your TBR for a year plus. But I also could have counted Night Bitch for like both of those. So I just placed him with this one. This one I would also say is more of like a literary horror because it's super slow and there really is like no gore in this one. I would say like there's blood, of course, it's about vampires, but it is definitely more of like a slower, more character driven horror story. This one follows Mia, and she is the child of a single mother, and when she is a little bit younger, her mom ends up being turned into basically vampires. They're not called vampires in this, but basically she has a thirst for blood and can't go in the sun and stuff like that, and her mom is kind of neglectful in a lot of ways, and Izzy had to grow up very fast and was kind of restricted in what she was allowed to do growing up because of her mom's hunger. But now Mia is in her 20s and she kind of wants to seek a life outside of this and basically having to be a parent for her parent. This is such an interesting take on vampirism, and I liked how the vampires were done in this story. But what I really loved about the story is that at the core, this is truly just about this mother-daughter relationship and how having a toxic, emotionally abusive, neglectful parent is very, very impactful for a young adult. That's not something that I have experience with, but I really enjoyed kind of exploring those themes in this book. And I think that vampirism was also a beautiful allegory for growing up with a parent who is an addict, and also there is a partner in here that is basically abusive to her mother as well. And so seeing that is something hugely impactful for Mia. And I think exploring all those things, this one actually is dual timeline. Because I think in like the first scene, yeah, literally she like walks in and finds her mom basically dead, blood running down everywhere, and that was like right after she got bit. And then we're following them in 2010 right after those events are happening, but then we're also following her now. As I said, I think there was so much to love about this book. Mia was such a interesting dynamic character. I wouldn't say like I loved her, like she was amazing, but I really think that she was really real, and I really liked seeing her try to like explore her life and what that looks like for her. And she's also exploring a lot of her sexuality in this book, which was also really interesting. And the end of this is truly heartbreaking but so real. Like there were so many things that she was like looking forward to that she thought was gonna go right, and then everything ended up blowing up in her face and just going the complete opposite direction. Like the worst that anything can get is how it happened in this book, and I really did kind of like that in a way. I know it's like so bleak, but I liked that a lot, how it did end so bleak. This is actually a duology, so I'm interested to see how it's going to continue in the second book, because I feel like this is like a really good standalone, and the ending is so bleak, so I feel like continuing the story is like an interesting choice. I do have the second book, so I will be picking it up and reading it, but I'm really interested to see how that's going to continue. The only reason I didn't give this a full 5-star was just because I do wish it had a little bit more horror. Like, I think because we're following Mia, who's not a vampire, that we didn't really get like the true horror, and that would have been more Izzy's perspective. But I still really like this one. Like, the metaphors and the commentary was just so good and so strong that I'm just like honestly surprised this was a debut, because it was so good. But it is a little bit slower. It's definitely more character driven, so I don't think it's going to be for everybody, but I really liked it. My next 4.5 star is actually Blood Over Brighthaven by Emma Wang, which is a fantasy book, kind of different for me, and I read that for Two of Cups, which is read a book that explores a duo or like the power of two, and I really like this one. It was a little bit more approachable because it is a standalone fantasy. It's a dark academia kind of vibe. Basically, we're following our main character, and I did listen to the audio of this. That's why I read it this month, because I had the audiobook out from my library, and it was supposed to go back in a couple days, and there was people waiting, so I was like, I gotta buckle down and read this. So this one follows our main character. As I was saying, I listened to the audiobook, but I can't remember how to pronounce her name, but she's basically been an orphan since she was 4 years old, and she has since dedicated herself to basically just like the study of magic. And her end goal to basically studying this magic is to accomplish the impossible, which is to become the first woman admitted into the high magistry, which is basically like the magic users of the world. And they're basically like academia, like they study it, they research it, they're the users of magic. And she really wants to accomplish this. And she actually does accomplish this, but all of her colleagues look so down upon her and discriminate against her. And all of them get like these assistants and like helpers to help them with the magic. And like some of them even get multiple, and she gets basically none. And so she doesn't want to complain about it, because she doesn't want to look like, oh, she's a woman, she's complaining, like she's not built for this. But they eventually give her one, and that's actually a janitor who works at their like building that they perform research and stuff in. And this janitor, his name's Tommel, literally has like no experience with like magic in this way, and he's looked down upon severely in this world because he was actually a hunter that was out beyond the magical barrier of like this city, country, I don't know what it is, but beyond like the confines of this main civilized world. And he made the crossing into the world 10 years before this that basically killed his family. And basically like the high magistry slash this like civilized world, it's called Tehran, they basically like killed off and hurt the community that Tommel is from, these nomadic hunters, and all the ones that currently exist in Tehran are looked down upon heavily. That's why he's like a janitor. He can't really get any other job. Like they're all in like the slums. Like they are an oppressed group in this world. It's really hard for me to explain fantasy, so I'm sorry if I didn't do a good job, but that's basically what this book is about, and them kind of working together. And that's why I chose it for this, because they have this dynamic, but they don't really like each other too much. A lot less than I thought, honestly. I feel like everybody could like this. Like if you are an active fantasy reader, I think you would really like this one. I know a lot of active fantasy readers have loved this one, but I think that also like if you haven't read fantasy in a long time, or you just kind of read it on and off like me, I think that you can still really love this one, because it is a fantasy and there is definitely world building and magic and all this stuff, but it is very approachable and easy to understand. It's also a standalone, as I said, which most fantasies are in series, so I like that I could just like go into this one book, have this one book experience, and then I don't have to think about like, oh, continuing in a series and all this stuff. It just made it a lot more approachable for me. When it came to world building, I never really felt confused in this story, which I really liked. Again, it felt very like easy to read for it being a fantasy, and I just thought it was really well done. I'm not saying like it was juvenile or dumbed down or anything like that. Like it was both easy to read and to comprehend, but it was also really well done, and I just think that it was a very interesting magic system and world. And I also like that they kind of brought more like a scientific element into it with the dark academia elements of like having research and scientists and all this different stuff. I thought that was a really interesting element to the story. Thematically, this book has so much going on. It explores the patriarchy and misogyny with our main character and how she's being treated, especially in this academic space. It was really fascinating and satisfying to kind of watch her try to carve out this space for herself in an environment that's not built for her. And then obviously there was a lot of like anti-colonialism commentary that came into this one, especially related to to like Tamil and his people, and how the high magistracy and this whole like sector of this world harmed this group of people, and they harmed them even more than I'm talking about because it would be a spoiler. But it's just crazy how oppressed these people were, and what these other people did to them is absolutely insane. I mean, people have probably done worse, honestly, in our real world, so I shouldn't say that it's that crazy, but I never read anything like this, and I really enjoyed that commentary a lot. The ending also completely caught me off guard because I've mostly read like YA fantasy. When it comes to fantasy, I've read YA fantasy and some romantasy, which both those I feel like wrap up pretty well. Like YA fantasy, like they want to have this cohesive story, and for romantasy, it needs to be a romance. So they need to have a happily ever after in the end. And this one did not wrap up nice, neat, like, you know, whatever. Like this one was truly heartbreaking at the end, and I really, really like that because it kind of brought in some of my elements that I like in my thriller and my horror. Like, again, with like Night's Edge having more of like a heartbreaking ending, like I really do like that, more of like a bleak ending in some of my stories. So I definitely kind of like how that was brought into this fantasy. I know this author has another really, really popular fantasy. I think it's like the Sword of Kaigen. I think it's also another standalone, so I might be checking that one out next. My last 4.5 star is As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson, and this one was for The High Priestess, which is read a book with a mystery element. And this one I also read during summerween. This is the last book in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I literally read all the other books, so it's a trilogy. So there's the 3 main books. This is the last one, but then there's also a short little novella called Killjoy, which is a prequel novella. And I read all 3 of those, and this was the last book that I had standing. And I was kind of nervous about this because I heard some people really like the ending, but then like my friend Haley did not like the ending of this series, and she didn't really like this one. I think maybe she gave it like 3 stars, but it just wasn't her favorite. And so I was a little bit nervous going into this one. And I do think it is different from the first 2 books. I think the first 2 books, while different and both really amazing, both like 5 stars for me, they are more similar to each other than this one. This one definitely kind of stands out. In this series, we're following Pip, who is a high schooler. It kind of depends on where you are, because apparently there is like a US version of A Girl's Guide to Murder, but then also the author's from the UK. So I think if you go to the UK, it's more like UK terminology, UK language, like UK location, versus if you are reading it in the US and get US copies, it takes place in the US and uses more US terminology. There's also a show. Don't recommend the show. I didn't finish it because I hated it, okay? But maybe that's because I read the US version. I don't know. But basically, we're following this girl who's high school age. Her name is Pip. And for her final senior project, she decides that she's going to investigate this murder that happened in her town. Where basically this young girl, years prior, she was also in high school, but it was like Pip was like in middle school when this happened. So this high school girl basically got murdered in this town, and her boyfriend is supposedly the person that murdered her, but he killed himself, supposedly killed himself. So they're just like, yeah, like this person killed her, and everybody just kind of accepts that, but like obviously there was no trial or anything because both of them are dead. But she does not believe that this is how the murder went. She does not believe that this boy killed his girlfriend, and so she begins to investigate it for her senior project by doing a podcast. And so this series is mixed media. I would say this one is the least mixed media out of all of them, and I kind of did miss that a little bit, which is one of the reasons I gave this 4.5 stars. But I really liked this one a lot. Like there was so much about this that I liked. I think Pip acted in ways that were very different for her character in this one, but also very explainable, because in the first 2 books she goes through a lot of trauma, and you do have to read these sequentially. Like this is not like standalone thriller series, like you have to read them in order for sure. It's like a continuous story. And so Pip went through Pip went through so much trauma in the first 2 books that was honestly insane. And Pip went through so much trauma in the first 2 books that was honestly insane. And so a lot of her actions and decisions and behavior is dictated by her trauma, because that's something that she's still actively working through. And this one, again, went in a different direction than I anticipated, like completely. And I actually really liked it. I thought it was a unique take for the series, because it could have gone in a very similar direction as the first 2. And I probably still would have liked it. I probably still would have loved it. But I like that this book kind of went in a different direction. And I feel like, again, for some people, it's going to really work like me. But then for my friend Haley, like that didn't work. And so I missed kind of more of like the podcast elements. There was still a little bit in here, but the reason I did not give this a full 5 star is because of the ending. I feel like the ending did not wrap up how I wanted, especially for it being a YA series. I thought it was going to wrap up a lot more like neater, cleaner, and just like more satisfying. And I became so attached to these characters. Like I love the characters in this series, and so I was looking for closure with those characters. You know, like when you get so attached to them, you want that closure, and we did not get that. Okay, we didn't really get the closure that we wanted, and I didn't love that. You know, it kind of just drew away from my experience a little bit, because I wanted to see my characters get their happy ending, and we didn't really get that. Like it's not like it ended like bad or like they're distraught, everything's broken. It's not like that. It's not like bleak like the other books. It wasn't as satisfying and giving me that closure that I needed as I wanted it to be. Now we're moving on to my 2 5-star books, and I just realized they're both by Black authors. Okay. The first one is King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby. You guys knew this was going to be up here. I love Sean. Sean and I go together real bad. I love him. I read this for King of Cups. 2 kings, okay? King of Cups, which is read a book with a wise character. And this one was also read for July Noir. I read it for A Deal Is Made. And this one, I think, honestly, is S.A. Cosby's best executed book. Out of all of his books that I read, I think this is his best executed. I don't know how with every single book he becomes a better and better author. His first book, My Darkest Prayer, it was good. It was a 4-star. And then Blacktop Wasteland was even better, and then Razorblade Tears was even better, and then All the Sinners Bleed, I will say, is still my favorite. I think this one's the best executed. I think it shows his growth as a writer, but that one is more of like my type of plot, which is why it's my favorite. But I think this one is even better in execution than that one, and I just don't know how he does it. Like, I don't understand. This book is heartbreaking, it's exhilarating, it's violent, it is so messy in the best way possible. This one follows Roman, and he left his family's crematory business in the past, and he kind of has like left his family. His mother died when he was young, and they actually believe that his father did it. Well, like the community believes that his father murdered her, but he never has been arrested for it or anything like that, so they don't really know. But he basically left that all in the past to kind of become like this high businessman in Atlanta. He basically advises people on financial decisions, like especially related to like stocks and stuff like that. Sometimes it's bordering illegal, if not illegal, what he does, but he makes really good money and has a good business. But then he has to return back home because his sister Nevaeh actually calls him and is like, hey, dad basically got run over by these train tracks and he's now comatose. So he basically comes home to like help his sister with everything because she's really taken on running this family crematorium. And when he gets there, he discovers that his brother Dante is actually also in trouble. And his brother basically made some deals with these kind of like gang member, drug dealer people. And if you guys know anything about gang members, if you make a deal with them, you better follow through. And Dante was not able to fulfill his promises that he made. And so Roman is trying to like come in and clean everything up in that regard, but then also trying to help his sister and like trying to figure out what happened to his dad. And there's just like a lot happening in the story that Roman has to burden. And what I really love about S.A. Cosby's books in particular is because they are fast-paced, they are more action-y, but he still has such amazing storytelling, amazing commentary, and amazing characters. I think what really stood out in this one is the characters. None of the characters in this one are good. I don't think any of the characters in any of his books are really good. Like, they just are real, raw, messy people, and that's what I love. Even the main characters in this story make decisions that you're like, that is crazy. Like, that is actually insane. And I mean, I feel like a lot of his characters in all his books do that. They are a little bit more like rough around the edges, and I think that has a lot to do with the environments that his characters are coming from, and it makes it so much more realistic. Seeing Dante made me so mad, so angry, because I just wanted to slap him. Like, he made such stupid decisions, but I feel like he's such a real character. Like, I know people who are Dante. Like, I know Dantes of the world, and it's so annoying because they're so immature and just like they make decisions that hurt everybody else around them and cannot clean them up, and they have to lean on other people to clean them up, and it's just so frustrating. I really liked Roman because he immediately kind of stepped in, and we see him shoulder this burden of his family. And Nevaeh was also such a strong woman, of her also taking on these burdens, running her family's crematorium. It was just so interesting, and I really like the crematorium element of this. I honestly wish we got a little bit more, but I'm not going to be too nitpicky. And I feel like Roman was really like playing chess. I feel like this one's a little bit less action-packed and gory than some of his other books, because Roman deals a lot more with like the financial elements and like trying to clean things up that way versus like actual violence. Like, he's not doing much violence himself, other people around him are. When in some of S.A. Cosby's other books, our characters themselves are committing a lot of violence, and that isn't happening in this book. He's very strategic as well, and what I really liked about this book too is that something will happen and Roman will be like, oh fuck, like how am I gonna fix this? Like, how am I gonna solve this? And we kind of see him go through the thought process of how he's gonna fix it. And I feel like a lot of authors leave that out, but I liked exploring that with Roman. And this one is also such like a family drama. Like, there's so much happening with this family, and there's secrets, there's resentment, there's generational trauma, there's just so much going on, and I really loved exploring that as well. I can go on and on about this book. I'm not going to, but I think this is probably my second favorite essay Cosby. I don't know. This one's competing with Razor Blade Tears. Like, it's definitely All the Sinners Bleed and then either this one or Razor Blade Tears, because I really liked the commentary in that one. I think this one might beat it out just a little bit, but it was so good. Please pick up an essay Cosby book if you can handle the violence and the triggers, because they're so good, have such good commentary, such good characters, and they're so fast-paced and action-packed. And my last 5-star is a book I don't think I'm ready to talk about yet, but that is Shy Girl by Mia Ballard. For the Tarot Readathon, this was for Queen of Wands, which is read a book with a strong female protagonist, and I read this for July Noir for a book that's of the night vibe / horror, and this is a horror book. This one's definitely more extreme than her other 2 books. So at this point, I've read all of Mia Ballard's work. I heard about her at the beginning of the year, and in the past like 2 or 3 months, I've read all of her work, and this one's definitely my favorite. I really like Sugar. I think Sugar is a good introduction to her work, and it's definitely like more unhinged and kind of fun. This one is very heavy, and it's very triggering, very, 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 very dark. People say this is extreme horror, and I would agree. I think that I've read extreme horror that definitely goes further than this. I don't really read extreme horror anymore, so this alone was kind of like stepping outside my comfort zone a little bit, but it was so worth it. This book literally made me sob, guys. Like, just talking about it, I literally want to cry. I was reading this at night. My boyfriend was literally asleep next to me, and I was literally like holding it in, sobbing, tears running down my face, because this book was absolutely like crazy. This one follows Gia, and she is kind of lonely, depressed, and broke, and she also is struggling with OCD, but she's recently lost her job in the past few months, and she's struggling to pay rent, and now it's like coming down to it where her landlord is like, if you don't pay me rent in the next couple of days, you're gonna get evicted. So she decides to sign up for a sugar daddy website. And when she signs up for this website, she's obviously just very interested in getting money. So she meets up with this man, and it kind of like goes well, whatever. And when he texts her afterwards, he's like, basically, I am offering you this position to work as my dog. He wants her to basically be his dog from like 9 to 5. He's gonna compensate her really, really well. It's like a deal that's unbeatable. And she's obviously having a lot of turmoil about this, because she's like, that's kind of crazy to like be somebody's dog, whatever. But she decides, you know what, this is really a deal that I cannot pass up, so I'm gonna just go and I'm gonna try it, okay? And that's what I thought was gonna happen. Like, I knew this book was gonna be dark, I knew it was gonna be heavy, but I thought Gia was going to basically like be his dog from 9 to 5. I thought she was gonna get to go home at the end of the day, and that was kind of like okay with me. Like, I was like, okay, she does not get to go home at the end of the day, guys. Like, I just want to put that out there for anybody else, because nobody's really said that, but I think that that needs to be said, because she is stuck. Like, I don't remember, I think it goes for 7 years. So I'm just saying, she's stuck with this man for a long time as his dog, okay? Because I think something can be a role. Like, I was like, okay, she's gonna play this role as a dog, and it's gonna be dehumanizing to her, whatever, but she gets to, you know, be a human at the end of the day. And that was what was crazy in this story. This book made me anxious and made me sick to my stomach. It was absolutely gross, vile, disgusting. Like, I can't. Like, I literally wanted to throw up. I think most women have not experienced something this insane. I don't think most of us have been forced to be a man's dog. But also, not to say women have gone through some crazy shit, okay? But I think a lot of women, even ones who haven't gone through crazy shit necessarily, we've all kind of felt the edges of something like this. We've all felt that dehumanization. We've all felt that fear, you know? We've all felt that kind of slow, subtle breaking down of boundaries, of being pushed. And the way that society makes it so easy for men to treat women like objects, like dogs, like animals. And the crazy thing is, I could see versions of this happening to people I know. I could see this happening to me. Like, my friends and I have joked like, oh, like a sugar daddy website, OnlyFans, this and that. And like, most of us would probably never do it. But one thing, like losing your job, can push you to do something like that, and then you can end up in a situation like this. Most people probably won't end up in a situation like this that's this extreme, where you're basically kidnapped to be this man's dog, but most of the situations are going to dehumanize you. And I just want to clarify, like, I'm not talking bad about these women at all. Like, if you want to do sex work, be a sugar baby, if you want to have an OnlyFans, go for it. Great, amazing. But that comes with these men, and these men are gross and disgusting, and they dehumanize women, and that's just the truth of it. And it's just so sad that society is so broken that it will push women to do these types of things. It makes men's behavior like this so just acceptable. And I think Mia Ballard's writing is so incredible in this. It is so like descriptive, but it's not overly flowery. Like, it's definitely less flowery than like Eric LaRocca, but I think there were so many good like metaphors and descriptions for what our main character was experiencing, for what she was feeling. And this book truly was just like so horrifying. Like, I'm literally about to cry. Like, I just am thinking about what Gia went through and what she experienced in this story, and it's so sickening. And again, it's not sickening just because like I'm like, oh, like what you went through was horrible, but it's just because like I feel like women have gone through this, you know, like there are women who've gone through this, and if not, they've still been made to feel this same way so often, and that just is so hard for me. I can't, like, this took me a few days to finish because I just could not read it at night after that one night. But and it definitely does kind of go good for her in the end, so I will say that, like, there is an ending to this that's not super bleak, but still, like, and the way that she was broken and like changed forever by what this man did to her is just so gross and disgusting. Like, there's no words to even describe it. Like, gross and disgusting don't cover it. And I think like Night Bitch wanted to be this, okay? Like, Night Bitch wanted to be this. I highly recommend this more than Night Bitch, but this one is definitely way more triggering than that one. And this one I feel like is more about like patriarchy and like what men do to women and how they treat women like objects. And I think Night Bitch is more like about becoming a mother and like that domesticity part of it. But I think they're kind of two sides of the same coin because they're both products of the patriarchy, but just kind of like a little bit different. This is definitely one of my favorite books of the year. I haven't decided like my final ranking, but this one is so impactful, and this is one that I'll be thinking about for a very, 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 very long time. Probably, I'll never forget it. It's unforgettable, honestly. Sorry I got a little teary there at the end, but those are all the books that I read in July. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. I had two really, really amazing books. Honestly, 5. Like, my 4.5s and 5 stars I really loved this month, and I found like a favorite book of the year. King of Ashes might also be up there depending on what else I read this year, but this one definitely, I know 100% for sure, will be up there. I would love to know what your favorite book of the month was down below, and if you participated in any readathons like the Tarot Readathon or Summerween, how did that go for you? And while you're down there, you can leave me the chess piece emoji to let me know that you made it to the end, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye, everybody.